Hello, everybody. Welcome to the RMNA 2025 podcast. Today, I am joined by Matt, a previous podcast, or not a previous podcast, but a previous commentator who's been with us for a long time. It's a very storied intro. But I'll let him get into it. Matt, who are you? What do you do? Welcome to the podcast. It's so awesome to have you here. Me and you know each other, obviously, but not everyone out here knows you. So I'm very excited to have you join us. And yeah, give us a little bit of intro. Who are you?
Yeah, glad to be back, Shar. Well, my name is Matt Blackwell. I've been doing RoboMaster stuff for quite a long time. Had to take a break last year because whenever I had graduated and just started working at a company, so I didn't have enough vacation time to be able to take off for a full week for the competitions, and didn't want to try and just be only there for half the time. But yeah, I've been doing robotics for a very long time. I guess just a little bit about me for maybe those who were on new teams last year, haven't seen me before, or haven't heard too much about me. I did robotics all the way back in high school in 2018, doing first robotics for the last 2 years of my high school career. Then segued over into college and was like, hey, let's get something similar to what first was like in high school for me, and found RoboMasters, and I was like, wow, this is similar but a whole lot better too. And was able to join the team after it had been just around for only a year before me. And then was there for all my 5 years of college. Yes, late graduate. Unashamed to say it, electrical engineering will do that to you sometimes. And I was a team lead for a year, and then went to do electrical for my final year because we kind of had a somewhat new electrical team that we figured out we needed a little bit late in designing everything, as we did super caps and things like that for A&M. And then graduated, started doing power electronics, or not power electronics, but power substation design, working with a company called DeShiel in Houston, and about to switch to do garbage truck electrical systems for a company called McNeilus. But that's a little bit in the future.
Thank you so much, Matt. Yeah, Matt has been with us for a long time. He's actually on some of the earliest commentary you will find on the RoboMaster channel. We have a bunch of 2021, 2022, and 2023 VODs with Matt's very nice voice lending that commentary talent there.
Also,
but yeah,
more hair than me.
Also with more hair, significantly more. It was a shock to see you finally shave that off. Like used to be long, luscious locks, and now it's all gone. I wonder if anyone in chat is sad for that. If you miss Matt's hair, let us know. Let us know in chat. But yeah, Matt, today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be hopping straight into, as I mentioned kind of earlier, we have a lot of these VODs. We have a lot of this history in RoboMasters, right? It's been 4 years so far we've been competing. This is the 5th year of the competition. We've been going from 2021 till now. And I was kind of curious. I've been watching some old VODs. I've been listening to you and Preston on the commentary. I've been hearing and practicing a little bit for this year as well. And I thought, what would be a great idea if we went back through some of these like really influential matches and kind of track this competition evolution. And then you kind of also talked about a little bit the tech evolution as well, right?
Yeah. And there's been a whole bunch of developments on both sides, with some very large changes, like with the Sentry leaving the rails. That was a pretty big shock, considering every year prior in RoboMasters there had always been a Sentry on the rail. The rail had changed design in some capacity, at least in the 7v7 competitions, but never had we seen a Sentry on the ground. And so that was obviously a very big change that has to influence gameplay and technique, because you have to change your design philosophy based off of the fact that you now need to drive the robot on the ground instead of just on the rail.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of on the rail Sentry, let's kind of get into like what that 2021 and 2022 season looked like, right? The very early start of RoboMasters. I actually have here a very fun little video for everyone to watch, and I will let this play unmuted because it is a rules video. So this is actually the only time I think RoboMaster North America has ever had a rules video. This is the RMUL 3v3 competition rules for 2021 and also 2022. This works for both. And immediately out the gate, you can kind of notice there's that Sentry at the top, the Sentry on rails, with a standard and a hero on the left and right. But yeah, we'll go ahead and let this play out for about a minute. And then, yeah, Matt and I will talk you through some of the key highlight matches of those 2 years. All right. Well, that was the 2021 rules video. So some basic hits from there because apparently some people couldn't hear the video well. Basic highlights: Sentry is on a rail, right? Which we notice here. I'll mute the video now. We can kind of scrub through it a little bit. Sentry's on a rail, as you can see right here. We've got the bases is a big thing from a difference from this year specifically. Bases are still an option.
Yep.
You have a standard and a hero, so pretty normal in that regard. But yeah, Matt, any other set the stage for some of the rules here for 2021?
No, nothing much besides, I guess, the fact that I think you were able to damage the bases through the overshield despite not having
Yes.
a first blood or anything like that. That was one thing that we saw happening with Virginia Tech, I believe, having their hero try and lob shots from very, very far away and be able to knock the overshield off while without even having to go through the sentry at all. Because even if you get the overshield down and do a single damage to the base, you're able to do a whole lot more. And I mean, that's your win condition right there, right? Like base health is always going to trump sentry health, even if the sentry's still alive. But yeah, I mean, that's really one of the big things that people were using to kind of like try and get around that kind of functional, like go through sentry, go through base path. But I think
Yeah.
that's kind of the only thing that's been changed besides the sentry going off the rail and
Yeah.
the middle blood bags and whatnot as well.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, health was another big difference here. Yeah, with the blood bags as well. You snowballed a lot faster in 2021, which
Yeah.
we're actually going to now cover a little bit here. This is one of my favorite matches, Matt. And you and I kind of talked about this a little bit beforehand. VT versus UW 2021.
Yep.
2021 was a very strange year in general for like the competition as a whole and what was happening. Matt, you can give us a little more context. You were there after all. I wasn't. So I'm kind of curious, what was the thought process behind this first match? Like, how do people think about VT? How do people think about UW? What was the kind of ideas we were seeing while going up into this round?
Yeah, well, I mean, as we had seen them throughout the entirety of the competition, both VT and UW were very dominating forces. As we were looking all the way back to, going blast from the past 2021, there were really only a few teams that had robots that could consistently get onto the field and be able to perform for the entire duration of their 3-round or best of 3 matches, because a lot of them were just not in the technical space to be able to have all their robots working at the same time, because you go out a little bit more and trying to do, I'm going to put more work on my sentry or put more work on my hero or put more work on my standard, and then whichever one, the other two of the ones that didn't get the attention is going to sometimes have a little bit of performance issues in terms of, or just consistency issues, which is a big thing. Is as long as you could have robots moving throughout all of your matches that you played, that was a huge advantage on somebody who might lose a robot for a round or two as they're trying to do field repairs on that. And obviously losing the health and losing just the ability of doing more damage, even if you're running double standard, was a pretty big deal. So yeah, as we saw both these teams being able to function at their high levels very, very frequently and without many rounds of maybe one robot not working for maybe a round or two, it was pretty impressive to see, to say the least.
No, absolutely. Very good. Very good stuff. Very good stuff. I remember actually coming into this from when I've talked to people from past now about this match. VT was actually the favorite in 2021. People were expecting them to be the best in the entirety of North America. So I'm not going to spoil what happens here, but if you've been watching any of the podcasts before or have, just not been under a rock, I think you know who the victor is going to be in this situation. But kind of talking about robot design here as well. I mean, we already mentioned the sentries on a rail, which is probably the biggest change technologically, right?
Yeah.
But even looking at UW's hero over here in this corner right here, and we'll let the match start to play here, and we'll see the rollout with that hero. Very small hero. It is incredibly tiny, but yeah. Here we have the VT side as well rolling out. We have the hero and the standard going to the center. But yeah, I just want to kind of point out, we'll pause right here for a second and we'll go over these robot designs. But these robot designs here are very interesting to me. Like I said, the UW hero being so small is very strange to me. I don't know, Matt, what else sticks out to you in this situation?
Yeah, well, I mean, you obviously have the inverse of VT's hero is very tall. I think they had one of the tallest heroes in the competition, because I believe A&M this year also went with a similar design to UW with having it pretty low to the ground in terms of the barrel. That way you'd be able to angle up more to be able to lob the shots, but a lot of times trying to get that in frame with the camera, especially for under-leveled heroes that aren't shooting projectiles as fast, so that bullet drop happens faster. It's a lot more difficult to implement that successfully to be able to actually get the function of lobbing those shots. So VT went with a different approach and said, hey, we'll at least get up as high as we can so that our camera's at least angled up a lot more, and we can actually have it, you can have the camera angled somewhat a little bit negatively. That way you could be able to see farther whenever you're looking up to do the lob shots.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't even think of the fact that the way that the heroes and standards are going to be designed are going to be to hit that sentry now, because the sentry's on a rail. You know,
Yep.
all the robots now
Yep.
are on the ground, all at the same level with their armor plates, right? This was a completely different ball game. And Kasha tape spots to the walls and VT's robot. Love base. Thank you very
Yep.
much, chat. All right, we're going to continue then into the rest of the match here. So the rollout here is pretty good. VT takes center with their standard. We have the UW hero kind of trying to peek a little bit, taking some lob shots over at the VT hero as well. A little bit of fire back and forth. UW is the one who takes the most amount of damage on their standard going first. And it's kind of got them in a corner here.
Yeah, and especially in these early rounds with the hero not having that much, like hero projectiles being very expensive, a lot of times the effort was not to just go and try and spend as much money as you could on the hero, but more have the hero as kind of like a big tank just to be able to absorb some damage.
Yep. And as we saw right there, both UW's hero and sentry went down to VT's standard, gives them a huge level advantage. Another thing to talk about the leveling system here. It's out of only 3 levels. Nowadays, we have 10 levels. It's a lot more like granular, but the difference between a level 2 and level 1 is essentially the difference between like a level 5 and a level 1 nowadays. So, you know, you can reach that level a lot faster. You have a lot more of an advantage. Like a level 2 standard absolutely trounces a level 1 standard. There's just kind of nothing you can do, right? VT did get to also take in that center point there and now has 2 extra blood bags on top. UW has 2 only, and if they want to use them, they've used one right now on their standard. You know, they're going to be playing from the back foot essentially.
Yeah, and once again, as we're actually in the cockpit right now, looking at the different UI design, it's something that's a little bit different that has been evolved over teams over the years as well. We've been able to, you know, as commentators, kind of have the eye of God and be able to look into the chassis of every different robot and see kind of how they've been. How their UI looks to be able to try and help their drivers, like for ranging, for a whole bunch of other stuff. I mean, as you saw, chassis Beyblade, being able to know if you're in Beyblade or in conventional to be able to, you know, traverse either quicker or faster, or how much of your either, like if you have your super capacitors doing a certain boost, you don't want to be in your spin mode and try and do that to go fast, because you're not going to be able to translate as quickly as if you just straight up went in one direction. So there's a couple different things in the UI that's obviously changed over the years, as well as the technology and, you know, the rules as well have increased, as well as the familiarity, right? I mean, North America right now, as we're watching this, is a very young region. This is their first big competition. This is the first time that these many teams here actually had competed in the 3v3, or at least in a competition that they were able to have all robots functional. Because I know some teams were international and went to the 7v7, but
something really funny, actually. I'm gonna scroll us back a little bit here, which is this is the power of hindsight. Is we could just immediately go back when we want to. So actually, both UW's robots get knocked out here by Blue Standard 3, the VT standard. Knocks them both out here on ARUW side. And it starts to collect. You'll see, like, for a little bit, standing on the central buff point, isn't collecting any central buff energy in that top middle section right there. Starts to collect it and then runs away. You had the entire center for yourself. They have to go back. Keep in mind this year, that, like, UW has to go back to unlock their ammo to be able to fire again. VT just left it alone. Their hero also overpowers in the side over there, allowing UW to slowly approach, and you kind of see like the hesitation on everyone's side. We're not seeing a VT and a UW who are incredibly aggro and ready to attack each other, right? Like you're mentioning, this is a very new region, a very new like kind of game for everyone. So they're all playing a lot slower than we're used to seeing these teams. And UW actually sneaks in and grabs the central buff point from VT, who kind of gave it up in this section.
Yeah, and even some more behind the scenes lore talking about that standard on the side of VT. I actually sat down with the guy who had been on the barrel design team for that, and he was the one that realized that no barrel was the best. After extensive testing, he was showing me the spreadsheet after spreadsheet, the different targets, how all the accuracy was spread, and he goes, and you know what's the funniest thing is? No barrel is actually the best. He was looking at the vertical flywheels, horizontal flywheels, like the size of the chamber, all these different kinds of variables, and he had a spreadsheet that just showed everything, and that's where we really found as North America region, and I'm sure it quickly spread to the Discord to be able to be kind of disseminated amongst all the teams, is that no barrel was actually the best barrel in a lot of different cases with the chamber design.
Yeah, absolutely. Here we see the UW hero goes back down, but something really critical here. VT is incredibly low on health and cannot recover anymore. They're out of blood bags. They did not grab the central buff point when they had the opportunity to. They decided to leave instead, allowing UW to grab that. And I think that's a pretty interesting strategy, in my opinion, to like allow UW to essentially get what is your only form of healing. Choo Dandan in chat saying it feels like 2 teams made those 2 robots. Yeah, it does feel like 2 very the robot design was not very unique compared to how it was today, right? We had a kind of an idea of what you should make. The difference here only being in their hero. 2 standards look very similar. right? Probably modeled off of
Yeah.
that AI standard.
Yeah.
Yep.
But at
Blue
that time
Hero
in the
also goes
competition as
down.
well, there wasn't too much that you were able to do differently for your standards. There wasn't the mobile 17 mobile launcher that we saw in from 2021 to 2022. You know, like we hadn't seen a couple different rule changes that had made the standard, you know, a little bit less than standard, right?
Yeah.
Being able to deviate from the normal pattern of just like, okay, make something that can shoot fast, move quick, and be relatively modular for being able to be fixed.
Absolutely. VT getting onto the central buff point here, they really need this buff point. They need to be able to heal. They had level advantage, but have kind of lost it as they just did not have the ability to heal. Resident 3 still losing out to that blue standard 3 over there. Virginia Tech standard is absolutely the highlight in this game, which is kind of interesting thinking back to like how VT is nowadays, right? VT's hero is what we consider to be like their top robot. You know, we see that in every match, and seeing that VT standard instead was like the pinnacle here is very interesting.
I believe they actually even use their standard at some points to be able to actually do damage to the base instead of using opting to use their hero, or if their hero had some kind of issues during the match. I don't remember, but I remember strictly hearing those projectiles bounce off that metal armor plate at a very, very quick rate, and we knew it was only one robot, and that was definitely going to be that standard.
Yeah. So UW takes this first match here, which I kind of pointed out already. I think that VT's like the solid, like even back here, right? Strategy really mattered, right? Like these teams were pretty well matched up. It wasn't like a UW like dominated just because they had better robots or anything. Both were suffering from overpower limits. Both were suffering from the inability to actually move through. This situation right here, where VT is on to central buff point, both UW robots just revived, have to go back, are not allowed to capture. VT not pushing this middle here more, I feel like this is what cost them this game right here. And we're kind of going to go through that a little bit more. Like VT had the better hero, the better standard. They were doing more damage overall. They were getting more eliminations. Let's see if we get that stat screen actually pulled up and we can kind of talk about it a bit more. Yeah, here's that stat screen right here. And you'll see, yeah, the VT total damage, 2,103 to 655, Matt. It's nearly 3 times the amount of damage. Just missing out on that one blood bag. It kind of shows, you know, we're talking about like game strategy wise, the central buff point mattered a lot for healing. Like if you didn't get blood bags, you were just not in the game.
Yeah, well, and that damage, you know, look, the damage is way higher, but it's not to the right robots, right? You have to damage your win condition to actually come out on top. And once going talking about strategy, you know, that's something that everybody kind of figured out as we watched this match of being like, wow, they did a lot more damage, they got a lot more kills, they were level 3 faster, all these positives, but then you don't turn that positive into, it's kind of like, you know, not going for Baron in League. You know, you're not able to go for the throat, you're not able to actually like finish the job. And sometimes, you know, that ends up turning around and biting you in the butt whenever there's, you know, a pretty big damage differential, almost 4 times as much damage as UW did, but UW did the damage to the right target.
Yeah.
And that's all that matters.
Playing the objective, man. If my Overwatch team would also just watch this podcast, they could like learn that as well. We could play the objective. We'll go through one more UW VT match here this year. I know it's a little bit less interesting to like some of you who might have been there, and also to some like, you know, it's not as relevant anymore to like the current day and age. We have a lot more to cover as well. We'll cover this I think we'll cover this one more match after this that I want to cover. If I can find the final match here. Here we go. This is where we are. We're at 2-1 VT versus UW. You'll see that they're still losing on Sentry health remaining. This one they actually win. They beat the base up a lot, right? Doing more damage as well, right? So they're finally playing the objective. We're now going to watch Game 4. The technical timeout. They do it for a bit.
As there always is in the finals. You can always expect the technical timeouts in the finals, man. Year after year. Well, there's no reason not to, right? Especially, and we want to see the best. You know, we don't want to see the limping champions trying to just get across the finish line. We want to see them finish strong in a really nice competitive match.
Yeah, absolutely. Referee system gets checked here as it always does. And we are going to be in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 off to the races. We're seeing the VT roll out first this time as opposed to the UW rollout. We've got their Sentry coming to the center again, taking the same kind of positions. Both teams not really changing much of their strategy. We see the UW shooting some hero shots already, trying to knock on the VT hero as well. The standards are having a little bit of a confrontation here. Little pun for you 1v1 enjoyers. But yeah, VT able to push them out entirely back into their base. And UW's hero, as you can see, just like it's not like the UW you'd expect. It's not the like super crazy fast hero that like does a lot of things and is like breaking itself over. These are very slow paced games compared to what we're going to see in the future.
Well, look at the standard for UW. Look at the health on that. It's so low. And
Yeah.
not having those blood bags to be able to actually take back and heal. I mean, now you're able to start building those blood bag stacks to be able to start doing the healing while the hero's in the middle. But not
Yeah.
doing that earlier is going to be punishing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But actually, VT's hero goes down first. UW's hero also goes down immediately after. But that was a key crucial moment there, because now we have both standards at the same level 2. Both heroes are knocked out, so can't gain levels while they're knocked out. This is also a rules change later on. You're actually not going to gain any experience when you're knocked out. And so you're not able to, if you're constantly overpowering, you're not going to gain any levels. You're going to be down and behind. That's what we're seeing with VT here. The hero's only level 1 versus the UW hero's level 2. Can do a lot more, be a lot more aggro, and can stop overpowering while it's moving.
I don't know how I had forgotten about that overpower, but that was something that had happened so many times to so many different teams that didn't know how to set their level settings or like kind of implement their software to be modeled after the levels to be able to change what voltage and stuff that your chassis is regulating on. It was not a good time for a lot of different teams that were trying to figured out that limit exists, because in test mode, I believe you're always in level 3 for the most part, or at least don't take damage from the overheat. But on the field, you will take damage from that overheat, and that knocked so many people out and gave a lot of people an advantage, because at this time, if your robot died at all, the other team would get the experience.
Look
no
at
matter
that
what.
VT standard sitting onto like a fraction of a health right there. It is still alive. I can't believe no one's firing at him. He's just spinning in place and no one's stopping him.
That's spin to win for you sometimes.
Yep. Finally gets knocked out. But yeah, it's also interesting to see how Beyblading is so different. We're not seeing the crazy spin speeds that we see nowadays in 2023 and 2024. We're just seeing like slow rotations, just trying to stay out of sight. You know, no one has crazy CV either, so we're not getting past that very much. But yeah, VT's hero is now sitting here in front of the base, looking to shoot, looking to fire, aim, and do any amount of damage. They do have less sentry health, so if they don't do any base damage at all, they are currently losing.
I think they were out of projectiles either financially or actually in their hopper to try and shoot here, because it seems like they would be in a perfect spot to be able to shoot.
No, absolutely.
Because you could still knock that overshield off of the base and do a ton of damage, especially with the hero.
Yeah. Another funny little thing here, UW's standard actually is no longer able to move. It has a module fault, so it keeps on just turning on and then immediately getting knocked out. So UW is a really funny thing here, in my opinion. They actually block the VT hero in. It cannot leave. It is stuck behind this base, unable to go either direction, because if you push them, you get a yellow card, and there's just not enough room to go past them. And obviously the rest of the 3 can't move. So UW actually, though, however, does allow them to get out and then realizes, wait a second, why am I letting them get out? But it's already too late. VT does sneak by. They could have just stayed there and they would have won. They had the sentry advantage. It would have been really funny, in my opinion. Yeah. But, you know, VT does get back over there. Start trying to take some more engagements here. You want to play the game. I understand if you're the UW side.
Ooh, yeah, especially as you've already got a round up to, or I mean, I guess both teams are up 1 now and it's 1-1.
It's a 2-1. Yeah, UW is up 2-1.
2-1.
Yep. Yeah, so UW will win this round. So they can kind of play. If UW wins this round, they win. And if they lose it, they can still play with 1 more. You know, you have to get to a 3 rounds 1 in order to win the best of 5 here. Yeah, so VT is going to try again. They're going to get behind this. They're going to get behind here. They got 45 seconds on the clock. They have to make something work. And also we're seeing here they have this red laser dot. That's actually something we don't allow anymore in venues. It's a unique thing to 2021. VT's hero is like, please. It's going up and down, trying to shoot that projectile, trying to get it out as fast as possible. It's a little bit of a jam there for them. Yeah. Very unfortunate situation here.
Could be a hopper jam, because it looks like they at least have projectiles in their ball path, but it's not able to actually get to fire.
Yeah, no actuation. They're just ramming into the base over and over again. Gets knocked out by the UW hero. Just one little tiny pluck out of a shot there. And yeah, this is 2021 RoboMasters, everybody. This is how 2021 looked. Very slow-paced game. UW takes it. VT the favorite, UW takes it. So the underdog story of a lifetime on UW's side. Everyone really expected VT to take it here. 2022 was a little bit different, though, Matt. Wouldn't you agree? 2022 was a little bit different. Agree. We have a little bit more going on in 2022. Specifically, the rise of one team. One team that maybe, Matt, you're very particularly happy with, very particularly acquainted with. I think you would like these guys. Maybe people in chat as well, Steven. I know you love this team. We all love this team. if you haven't noticed already, this is Tamu versus Pooter. Now, one thing that's allowed in 2021-2022 we haven't kind of mentioned is this thing called alliance teams. For those of you new to RoboMasters, an alliance team would be a combination of schools bringing in different robots together. Pooter here is the Purdue, UT Austin, and RHIT alliance team. RHIT fields the Sentry robot, which is the one on the rails. It's just a box robot that goes back and forth, doesn't actually shoot. Purdue fielded the Standard, and UT fielded the Hero, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to just launch straight into this game. This one's a very fun one. Very particularly fun because it's Tamu versus UT in essence, which I am sure those of you from Tamu will know very quickly. That is quite the rivalry. And here's the Tamu. We also get an upgraded stream quality, which I personally really enjoy. But yeah, Texas A&M out and Pooter also out of the base. Both are moving. And you already notice out the gate, Matt, these are robots that are actually moving a lot better than the 2021 ones.
Yep.
Like, this isn't even like a peak. This is a group stage match, and it is already at a level of quality above what we just saw in 2021.
Well, you know, just like on my resume, as I try to tell everybody, a year makes a whole lot of difference when it comes to experience. And as all these teams have at least had a little bit longer to develop, a little bit longer kind of to sit in the oven and cook, they've been able to come up with quite some masterpieces, or at least enough to get you by and not burnt food. I can tell you that much.
Absolutely. I love the white brackets also on the Tamu design here. I know this is not really particularly meant on the match side smoothly, but I love these Tamu robot designs. They look so clean to me. But yeah, here we're also seeing the Tamu robot. The Standard is shooting really fast and takes first blood on the Pooter team. Blue Standard 3 out, which means the invincible status has expired. And look at that Tamu Standard. Oh, it's so beautiful the way it peaks. We're also seeing Beyblade rotations are a lot better now, right? Like, we're a little bit faster on our chassis. We're able to do proper Beyblading, even at level 1. Like, power limiting controls, no issues with like overheat, no issues with going over. The Standard and the Hero on Texas A&M side not taking any damage yet because they haven't gone over any of those limits. And they're playing that center objective a lot better as well.
Yeah, I think 2022 was really the year of the standards, because that's whenever everybody kind of had enough time to get a very cohesive standard put together. That was also whenever the RMNA Discord started opening up a little bit more, and more people were kind of trying to share and boost the NA region as a whole, so that way that the competition could be a lot more interesting, as we saw it got. And a lot more people had just a much more consistent performance with their standard, or just consistent performance with at least the firing mechanisms of being able to defend themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we just saw there, speaking of defending themselves, when Tamu's Standard very sneakily came around from behind and was able to started attacking Blue Standard 4, they immediately snapped their ammo, were able to track it, right? Which I think is very interesting. Like, you know, like, people are more aware now also on the game, like in the game sense style. People, even if they're not that good at the game necessarily, they're not necessarily having the best robots, they're still at least able to participate. They're more aware of what's happening. Everyone's a little bit more aware of the rules. But Texas A&M grabbing this huge lead in terms of like blood bags, grabbing like a solid lead on the Sentry health as well, taking it really slow still, which is kind of unique as well, I would say, from Texas A&M. Their standard is usually very like up in your face, and this is kind of a situation where we're seeing them a little bit like more meticulous.
Yep. And this is where the Hero's starting to try and take some shots. No longer supported by a rubber band to try and offset the weight of the speed module. It can actually pitch up and target the Sentry without that much issue.
And it is hitting those shots. It's doing a ton of damage. One more shot brings the Sentry down to 80 HP, and then one more knocks it out entirely, meaning the base has no overshield anymore.
And not only that, but that also means that they're taking first place for the time being, as the base health is the second win condition right behind the Sentry health.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the little collision right there between the Standard and the Hero driver. Just a tiny bit of a little love tap between them as they try to navigate through. But yeah, we'll continue through this game. I'll skip through a little bit ahead to see some of the highlights here. We get some more interactions between the Standards, and I'm pretty sure they're going to send the Hero in sometime before. Yeah, here we go. So the Hero is going to come up here to the center, kind of line itself up. And we can see this another thing also. This field walls and such here were different, so that you could actually aim from the center and knock the base from the center. So that's actually a Hero shot that gets successfully launched from basically center field, which is not something that you could do in 2023 or 2024, because the wall length was a little bit different on the base side. It was a little bit longer, so you had to get like actually into the enemy zone.
Yep. And then that way you actually have a bit more of an ability to respond, especially by the Sentry, because trying to target with the Sentry from that far away was a bit difficult to do on the 100% CV autonomous side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially whenever it's trained to the rail.
No, yeah, actually, it being on the rail does make it a lot easier, actually, to target, in my opinion, as well. You didn't need CV in order to hit a rail robot. You just needed to kind of have a little bit of prediction, right? It can't go. Once you're sat down somewhere, it only can move like in a linear fashion across your screen, right? So I think that that also makes a lot of changes in terms of how much CV was prioritized in these earlier matches. So Tamu will continue forward up until the rest of the competition here, and we'll see them again in the finals of 2022. But we're going to move on next to another couple of teams that grew up. One team in particular here that I want to mention. First off, NYU got to represent. Hi everyone, NYU. But the other team here that's actually the kind of like the story that we're going to be introducing here is CU. Matt, what is really funny about this CU robot right here? The one in the corner right there. You see that hero right there?
I do, and I think it's got a bit of a mixture when it comes to ammo, because that mobile 17mm was actually on their hero. So they have an undermounted 17mm projectile launcher that they're able to use. So that way you could kind of use it as a pseudo standard, or use it as a pseudo standard to be able to knock out other robots and not use your large 42mm golf ball size projectiles on the robots themselves, and then instead use it on the sentry or the base, which is, the structures that it's designed to do damage to.
Yeah, absolutely. These are also robots that are both on swerve drive and are incredibly power heavy in terms of making them move around and such. I remember talking to the CU team actually about this, and they're like, yeah, our robots have a lot of power intake, etc. And the last thing is also they're huge, right? Which, if anyone knows CU of today, kind of surprising, I think. I think that would surprise a lot of people. Absolutely massive robots there. Yeah, here comes the NYU Lone Standard 4. I think this is the only working robot for our team this year, if I remember correctly. I think Standard 3 is like just kind of in the corner, unable to move at the moment. Oh no, we're both there. Never mind. I take it back. I just didn't see Standard 3 over there. But yeah. And you can see this is a little bit more of like a simpler standard design overall. There's nothing really that special, but immediately shots going back and forth, right? These are not what we would consider like top tier teams by any means in this stage of the game, but they're still both able to move. They're both able to shoot. There's a lot more variety in terms of like what's actually happening. We can see that one of them's actually going cross court, firing at the sentry already, which is really funny. I think it's Blue Standard 4 is firing at the sentry directly at this time.
Yeah, and also once again, talking about the generations as of the centuries, especially, I think 2022 was actually whenever I believe CU, UT, or not UT, VT, and UW, as well as Texas A&M, some matches were able to get their sentries to work and accurately target.
Yeah.
And so that was something that was different from before, where I think it was only VT that was able to have a stand or a sentry that was able to attack. UW might have also had it, but I remember seeing VT, I think, the most.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember VT for sure in Tamu. I think UW also have it, which we'll see in the finals. No spoilers there, but UW does make it to finals. But yeah, and so this dash is a little bit slower as well. And this is just another thing, right? Like we're seeing like this is how like it looked like to be in the midfield essentially, right? Back in 2022. You needed to have some bit of working robots. Things would break on the field. Not everything would work immediately as expected, but you would be able to trade back and forth a little bit. Blue Standard 3 and Blue Standard 4 both are at level 2 now, being able to take back, being able to have gotten the central buff point, having 5 blood bags now, not having to have to use any of it to heal yet. Red Standard 3, again, overpowering over there in that corner. And that's because of that swerve drive, right? One of their motors got undone here, if I remember correctly. And this made it so whenever they would power up, and you'll kind of see this, the minute they would move, they would just immediately overpower. Yeah, they're trying to move very sneakily over there to not overpower.
Well, and the hero is still level 1, right? And that's a big, big difference. Level 1 hero, I'm sure as a driver, or could explain even better than I could, like the massive difference in how the robot feels to drive from level 1 just to level 2, right? Level 3 is kind of its own beast. But I think the biggest difference that's like a felt difference is probably from 1 to 2.
Oh yeah, absolutely. 1 to 2 feels very different. It feels like you basically are like it feels like level 1 you're driving like kind of like an old like 1980s Chevrolet Impala, and then all of a sudden you're put into like a BMW i35 and you're just asked to like rev it all the way, right? It feels like Ferrari of old in F1 versus Ferrari of new of F1. It's a very different kind of like feeling to be able to do.
Hey, but at least in both cases, you're still in a Ferrari, right?
At least in both cases, you're still in a Ferrari. I mean, I don't think that's what the Formula One drivers are feeling anymore after Ferrari's performance this weekend, which my Formula One fans in chat will definitely be mad at me for bringing that up if they're Ferrari fans. But yeah, and here we see NYU just kind of taking a little bit of damage again. It's all about playing the objectives in these situations. We're talking about, game strategy here, and not to toot my own horn, but I was pretty aware of the objectives. I hope my Overwatch teammates would say so as well. But here I was thinking also like, oh yeah, we need to hit this like sentry right now, right? The 5-2, we're getting it down slowly over time, and that's what's going to make or break the actual win here, right? So kind of again skipping forward through here, we've shown like the CU differences here. CU's kind of like stuck in the corner now; they can't really go much farther, which we'll see a comeback from them for sure in later years. But yeah, slowly knocking out the sentry health up until we get to here. Sentry health is all the way down, 5 seconds on the clock. CU hasn't done any damage to the actual objective yet. They're not really able to contest in that regard. We start doing some base damage, and blue win occurs for NYU, which so happy to have that win. I'll be real. I think about this, I'm like, this was a legendary time for me personally. But yeah,
well, and I mean, at this time, right? I think you guys were you guys a second year team at this time?
Yes, this is our second year playing entirely. Second year team, 2 standards. Those standards were also built in like a month. We actually, I remember coming in to the lab in like May, the end of May, and just like sitting there and just being like, where are the robots? And being told, oh yeah, we're getting them. And I was like, getting them? And then I saw like completely unbuilt robots. And I was like, what the heck, man? But kind of going back to, 2022 still, VT versus CU. Now, VT did not make a ton of improvements from 2021, 2022, which is something that like maybe we'll get them in the later as we'll see. But this still kind of shows like there was still a huge difference between like those top 3 teams, TAMU, VT, and UW versus a team like CU, which we saw was not bad by any means. They're moving, they're shooting, they're able to perform to the most part. However, when it comes down to some team like VT, and this is what VT looks like in 2022, we still have the caution tape everywhere, which is beautiful in my opinion. Look at that standard and how fast it is. The hero looks about the same as well, but that standard is so fast. They have super caps this year, which is a little bit of difference from last year. Oh, it's so beautiful. Look at how fast it moves.
Getting those super caps gets you that little turbo. For those who might not know or be a little bit new, you're able to actually use super capacitors to be able to operate on a secondary power source and not pull as many amps and volts from the battery as you normally do, but instead siphon a little bit off to a capacitor bank to charge it, and then use that capacitor bank to be able to functionally have a little bit of a sprint key.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you ever played Halo, this is when Halo Reach added a sprint key essentially. That was super caps for 2022. But yeah, in chat, people asking was the only round UW ever lost in 2021. That is correct. That was the only round in eliminations or groups that UW has ever lost. They have lost 2 other rounds that were not in eliminations. One was against NUS, which we'll see later, and one was in practice versus CU, which was in 2024. But yeah, the actual amount of rounds, that was the only one they've ever lost, which is pretty solid, and we'll get into that later. Yeah, as we see here, like VT is just like another level of a team, right? Like they're able to just like completely keep CU on the other side of the field. It looks like a complete domination, right? And this is kind of where we start to see like that difference between like the midfield teams and the top teams, I would say. Matt, I don't know if you want to comment more on that coming from a top team in terms of TAMU, but like how did it feel to like be engineering for like a team like that? What was the difference you would say? Like what's the difference in approach you would say?
I mean, in a lot of stuff that we did pretty modularly in terms of like the different robot teams. A lot of the stuff, I mean, we would obviously share, on aerial, I think we found out that the no barrel was the best barrel because shout out Brandon Jones doing aerial and then doing sentry and then doing a whole bunch of other stuff. But he kind of discovered, oh yeah, no barrel is 100% the best after I had delivered him the message from VT saying that was the way that they had been doing it, and they had been having a great standard that had been dominating. So we're like, hey, at least we can learn from the best, take some tips and tricks. A lot of the stuff that we ended up doing was just kind of innovations from learning from other teams and also trying our own stuff. We did a whole lot of our own stuff, as we see, later whenever we have a 17 millimeter on our standard as well, to be able to have 2 barrels on our standard that we can alternate between to offset the barrel heat. But, we've had some innovations, a lot of different innovations, and just like any team, we also try and learn as much as we can from the other teams, both at the competition and outside of it, in the larger RoboMaster NA community.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's a very brilliantly well said. But yeah, VT is going to continue to just kind of like, showcase their dominance here. They're going to knock out that sentry. Or I thought they were going to knock out the sentry. Maybe they miss all their shots actually, and they're not as dominant. Oh yeah, here we go. They're going to knock out that sentry pretty quickly. And the hero is already launching for the base. Even before, they're like pre-firing. Even before the sentry is completely down, they're already pre-firing on it to get through the shield. And then they just keep on doing damage. It's like beautiful. Great coordination from their team.
Well, if you look at their HUD too, they moved from having a laser pointer showing where the barrel is to now they even have a rangefinder showing what the extents of the armor panel need to be. As you can
Yeah.
see, those two curved lines as they go down, that's to line up where the armor panel is going to be so that it's inside the bounds of both those lines, just barely touching the edges. But that gives them way better of a range finding tool than just looking at a laser and being like, well, I'm probably about this distance, so I'll aim up a little bit more, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So yeah, VT is going to take this round doing enough base health to take him down at 1300 over here. And they do take the rest of this match as well, which, happens and happens again. This is kind of like showcasing the difference between the top teams. And then finally, the last little match we'll watch here, and we'll watch at least one round of this. We're going to watch the first round here, is UW versus TAMU 2022. A very beautiful match, in my opinion. This is the pinnacle of RoboMasters in 2022. These two teams were both crazy dominant throughout the entirety of RoboMaster NA, and both had working sentries at this point. So we're going to see them both in this situation, using them both. Yeah, that Hydra sentry right there, very horrifying. Look at it go up and down. It is scanning. I feel like the UW sentry is so scary to look at. But as we see Texas A&M already firing at the Bread Standard 3, it looks like taking enough damage over there in the top left. But yeah.
But this is one of the years, right, where we're actually able to have a sentry that's firing. Both sentries are firing at the other teams because that double-headed Hydra, if it finds one target, it'll tell the other head, hey, here's where you need to shoot, and it'll turn and real quick start engaging. So it was something that was really scary to be going up against, I'm sure, in the shoes of the driver's seat. But that's another example of an evolution of design, something that was completely unique to how UW had, come out with the design. Talking about the top teams, it's like seeing how they push the limits, and seeing how much, a complete, like a separate 100 or I guess whatever your field of view of your camera would be, probably about like a little bit over 100 degrees, something like that, being able to see in the different window of direction at the same time, right? Whenever it's 100% autonomous, you can't really tell it, hey, here's where their target is. It has to find it. So that's a big advantage over just a single camera that you're trying to use to scan for targets.
Yeah, absolutely. And UW also playing that center. We're seeing a lot more of an aggressive UW in this situation. I think that's something that's really interesting to see as well. Like, this is the year that they start becoming that more aggressive play style. They're really playing the objectives and stuff. They've already taken center one time. They're keeping themselves in this. They're keeping themselves in the fight. They're at A&M side, despite the fact that the A&M sentry was firing at them. They didn't really back off too much. They stayed there, trying to get there. And the A&M sentry's now out of projectiles, so they know now is the time to go take in some kills. And as we see here, they take out that first. The hero actually takes out that first hero right there, and makes it so that they get leveled up to level 3 on their standard. As the standard now takes out the standard on TAMU side as well, to start to attack that sentry. Beautiful stuff from UW.
Yeah, and once again, talking about the evolution of the HUD, I guess we saw for a little bit of a second there, and we'll probably see later as well, with the POV for the different UW robots, where they have an entire model of their chassis now showing how their chassis is oriented in relation to their projectile launcher.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's really cool also, yeah, as we say, the evolution of the HUD as well. And then also we're seeing more spinning here as well. The UW hero also gained a little bit of height in between the years. It's not totally the tallest one by any means, but a little bit higher. It's right at the base height now because they're expecting to go for bases. They're actually pulling a VT strat here, going up behind the TAMU base. No one has noticed because, well, people might have noticed, but they are knocked out currently and cannot do much about it. And are starting to chunk through that base health right there. Already down to 1,300 health, 1,100 health now, 980. And we're going to see the rest of it go through.
And that's through the already 2,000 damage shield that was previously on there because the sentry is still alive for A&M.
Yeah. They were able to go through most of that health just alone. Just a couple more shots required, or one more shot from the hero, or a little bit of ammo from the standard to take out the rest of the base and end this round, which UW's just choosing to do is the sentry. The standard. It's right there. Go ahead and knock it out the rest of the way. And that is a red win for UW. But yeah, still kind of showing that UW's dominance kind of started early. In 2022, these are both really solid teams. They both have able to fire sentries. They both have all the robots working, but UW is just a little bit more aggressive now, right? And that's kind of what separates them from the TAMU victory here, in my opinion. I don't know, Matt, do you have any more comments on that right there?
I think there's a pretty steep technological difference here as well. I mean, not to say anything bad about A&M, but more that just UW had come back as a force to be completely not reckoned with at all, because they were just very, very high above a lot of other teams, and at this point it included A&M, just in terms of the design, in terms of the consistency. Because I remember this year there were quite a few different problems that A&M would have on. I mean, as we saw with the Sentry, right? The Sentry was shooting a whole lot, but wasn't hitting a whole lot, and so that's one big difference, is trying to drive up to the Hydra Sentry on the side of UW and actually contest that while it's actually able to hit you. But you're getting outranged by a standard from a very far range for the sentry, or at least just getting your shots baited out enough with the confidence interval and, understanding how that works and all that to be able to exploit it on the side of UW, to be able to just dump the ammo for A&M to just go right up underneath it, because that's a lot easier to hit than a farther shot. So I think there's a difference in both strategy, but I think a bigger difference in technology was able to help UW in this case, at least being able to do very, very well with their standard and with their hero and sentry, obviously just being able to defend itself. But a lot of times A&M was on their heels during that match.
Absolutely. I do agree with that, actually. Looking back, I'm like, you know what? You're right. There was a technological difference as well. I do agree with you there. Which UW actually decided to, put their technological prowess to their expertise as well and host it in 2023, which we'll kind of just watch this video real quick as well. So 2023, a lot changed, Matt. Very particularly, a lot changed. We'll start off with the CU versus VT again, because I think that's most emblematic of the changes, is looking at CU in this particular situation. But in terms of rules changes, Matt, do you want to remind me real quick, what exactly changed between 2022 and 2023? I feel like there was something major, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, and that was actually the year that I had just signed up to be Sentry team lead. No! I think the Sentry had a little bit of a change where you could actually add a 17mm projectile launcher to it and have a second one. No, that was from a different year. The Sentry went off the rails. Let's just say that. And so now all of a sudden you have to account for the Sentry being on the ground as a ground robot that's able to not only, ideally be able to shoot, but also ideally be able to move, because it was able to move outside the starting box and possibly go into the health region spot. But that took a whole lot of different prowess. That CU was stepping out on a limb and being one of the first teams, if not, I believe the first team actually, to move their Sentry outside the box.
Absolutely, yeah. They and UW were the only two teams that this year actually moved completely out of the box. Essentially, were able to do different things. But yeah, first thing I pointing out, the Sentry obviously is on the ground here, and look at that CU Sentry, very compact. You'll also see the CU hero and the standard on that. We can't really see it right now, but everything has gotten more compact on the CU side. I think it's really emblematic of not only their growth as a team, but also how technology changed throughout RoboMaster. We started to realize where are the optimizations we can make, and designs of robots really started to change between teams. If you showed me a robot from 2022, I might be able to tell you what team it belonged to. 2023, I think I do a lot better in terms of that's McMasters. They have the spider design. That's CUs. They have those really tiny compact ones that are low to the ground. That's VTs. It's the caution tape, right? But yeah. So we watched this in 2022. We're going to watch this match again in 2023 as the countdown begins here. And I think this is a very fun one, particularly because immediately as we see, there goes that Sentry on CU's side, immediately moving over to VT's side and doing damage instantly. They are not wasting any time dealing damage to the hero, dealing damage to the standard as well, taking a little bit of damage back, though, because, you can't always, you're risking yourself a little bit here.
But then look at how fast you start turning whenever you have a very small base, because that's one thing. I mean, it's like a ballerina having legs closer to the body, right? You're going to spin a whole lot faster. I guess an ice skater is the representation I'm going for there. And you just, the closer that your limbs are to your body, the faster you're going to spin, right? Because angular velocity is going to be the same. However, your tangential velocity at the edges is going to be different. So you're able to have a lot quicker of a movement on your plates, which actually, if you run the numbers, if you spin at a certain speed above the optimal speed to be turning, to have your sides that are able to be hit and sides that aren't able to be hit at this as a ratio. I think if you spin so fast, you actually can make it so that every side is an armor panel whenever you're getting shot at, because there's a lot higher of a chance that over the course of the projectile hitting is going to actually hit an armor panel based on how small it is. So there's a bit of an optimization problem there.
No, yeah, absolutely. Also, just real quick, I'm going to scroll back for a tiny bit. Look at the HUD in the top right. We have an actual showcase of a localization map here that they're able to point the Sentry and move it towards. I think it's incredible as well. So already we're seeing CU and VT here. Compared to 2022, they're a lot closer out the gate. CU's actually ahead, has done more damage to the Sentry than VT has. Obviously, they just lost their hero to projectile overspeed, but they're ahead in levels. The infantry is still ahead by a whole extra level. And again, this is not the 2024 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 leveling. This is you're at level 3 that is max level, and the difference between levels are a lot higher. So, this is quite a bit of an advantage on CU side to have that level advantage. They have the Sentry health advantage. They're clearly winning in this position.
Yeah, and as you can see with the being able to play so aggressive with their Sentry, it's a very big risk because you're putting your win condition in arm's reach of at least possibly another robot that could shoot, with the Sentry, the opposing team Sentry being, eyeing it down. But you're also just right next to their reloading zone. You're right next to a whole lot of places that they're able to see you a lot more, while CU's so far back in terms of their user-controlled robots.
And Matt, you are basically a prophet. The VT hero actually gets to take out the Sentry because it's standing right in their reload zone, and it has invulnerability from reviving right there. So the Sentry actually gets knocked out in this situation. It does not go back to heal itself. Apparently, we're hearing from Hanroy in chat that the Sentry got lost in the map and could not make it back to the healing zone. They had some code for it. Help happens sometimes, but that's the risk you take, right? When you go so far out, things like that can happen. Your autopause can go wrong. Your odometry can go wrong. You're not able to localize for whatever reason. You're stuck there. And like you said, you're leaving that win condition out there. But it's still really close. VT and CU both no longer have a Sentry active, but are both just kind of going back and forth, shooting projectiles at each other's bases. But, we know VT. Look at the speed of that hero. It's in the back of the base, and we know exactly what it's going to do. It's done it a million times before. There's that circle actually showcasing it's doing it right now. CU's standard trying to get there, trying to do any amount of damage. VT is just a little bit faster, has that game experience. And that's now what's keeping apart these two teams in terms of their ability. It's no longer technological. We saw the Sentry on CU side incredibly well. Both robots are working incredibly decently. It's now down to just pure strategy between a team like CU and a team like VT. And I think that's really, really beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it takes it back to RoboMaster being, in two parts, an esport and a robotics competition. You have to make sure your robotics work, and you can also innovate your changes and innovate different things onto the different units that you decide to deploy. But it's also a strategy competition. You have to understand the game. You have to understand, what the win con is, be able to play for the win con, especially in the heat of the moment in the driver's seat. Never having been in the driver's seat for a competition, I can't fully speak to that, but I guess that's where your expertise in that regard would come in. But I know it's got to be very stressful to have the entire team's efforts of putting this robot together kind of to your request, right? I mean, are there different things as a driver that you kind of have special insights for whenever you're designing the robots on the team? Or is that something that's kind of just like I'll just deal with it as it comes?
It kind of some of the things it's yes, it's I was a part of a programming team as well, right? So I was also I knew I want to set these offsets because I want this amount of speed. I don't really care to rotate this much. It's just I want to have more movement ability when I'm spin to winning, right? So things like that definitely come into play. I would say mechanically though, you kind of do just have to take it as it comes because this is a thing that I wish that we had more time to do with teams, and I hope teams have started having more time to do. But testing is difficult, right? Being able to test all of it at once is incredibly difficult. And then if you have to tune all the mechanics on top of testing, I'm sure UW probably does it. I'm sure VT probably does it. At least for NYU, we did not have the time to do that. So. But yeah.
Well, I think one of the bigger things too that often gets overlooked is interfacing with the ref systems, because a lot of times if you're in practice mode, even if you have plenty of time to practice, but you don't have an actual server that you're able to set up a base and the Sentry and connect everything to and have kind of create make a false match to be able to practice in, that is one thing that we see a lot of different teams as the years have gone on have gotten a lot better on, because obviously also the RMNA community tries and help prevent that as much as possible. But a lot of times, with the teams that have been a bit more senior and just been in the competition a lot longer and suffered those problems to a large extent whenever they did, but learned from it and then moved on, but then have since forgotten it or have since had people that did that originally move on. There's not as much sometimes expertise in that regard, but they've already got it solved, so they don't have to, go back and try and fix it or change something. Or the system's just very well understood and they've trained, the people as they come up to be able to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really well spoken, Matt. We're going to now move to a very interesting team that popped up kind of out of nowhere in 2023. At least nobody in the North American region was expecting this team to be this good. And I see some people in chat already going, it's the match that never ends. No, not this match. Please, anything but this match. I promise we won't watch the whole match. This match is notorious for being one that was delayed a ton. Tamu got 4 timeouts instead of 2 because of some delays, some restarts, some replays. But the star of the show here is not Tamu. The star of the show in this match is a little team who's coming back this year. We're very excited because they weren't originally. NUS Caliber from Singapore. Now,
all the way from Singapore. Yep.
all the way from Singapore. Now, this team, we look at their robots on the right. Nothing particularly crazy, right, Matt? This looks pretty simple. They're moving out, they're rolling out. They have decent speed. They're not like insane by any means. And that Sentry is not really moving anywhere special, and it's not really Beyblading either. It's just kind of spinning slowly, looking for a target or something. Very interesting strategy here. So the NUS standard, the NUS hero starts taking on engagements with the Tamu standard. Tamu's Sentry does a little bit of damage to themselves and their hero as well, just because, you know, they're shooting the wall, they're trying to find blue. It's a little bit difficult. We get that. But yeah, NUS's hero, though, isn't taking a ton of damage compared to how much you would expect against Tamu's standard. Tamu's standard being like their most valuable robot. Yeah, here we see NUS's standard doing a good amount of damage to putting it back to them. They're not winning by any means. They're not winning the center or anything, but they're keeping in. They're keeping in against Tamu, you know, second team from last year. Sneaking by a little bit to take some shots at trying to take out that standard before it goes away. Look at that game strategy right there. And they're almost able to knock out the standard on Tamu's side. Look at the game sense and awareness from NUS.
Yep. And that gives them a level, and that early level is, like we were talking about, the most important, and now they're able to just do a whole lot of damage with it.
And that, my friends, is what makes NUS so goated. It's reliable robots with amazing strategy. The standard driver on the blue side noticing that, oh, the standard for Tamu is low. I can just chase here. Nothing can stop me. Their Sentry's not going to attack me. I know it doesn't hit me, right? And they did some damage as well to the Sentry with their hero. They're doing some more damage, able to land those shots, right? And also, by the way, their drivers are like CSGO masters. They don't do this with CV.
Yep.
They literally just aim. That's just the difference with NUS. But yeah.
Well, not only that, but also having the fine mechanical control of the robots to be able to make those kinds of small adjustments, right? Because, you know, as we saw with A&M 2021, whenever you're using that hero with an elastic band holding it up, it doesn't really matter how great your driver is if the robot takes 5 minutes to settle after it's bouncing up and down, trying to get into a point of equilibrium. But
absolutely.
that, you know, once again, goes to speak for the consistency of the robots and not just, you know, the incredible design that they're able to put into it.
Matt, am I watching this right? Is this NUS a team no one has seen in the NA region before about to knock out Texas A&M's Sentry?
That is exactly what you're seeing, because that Sentry is not able to fire back. It is spinning too fast to be able to catch up and not able to scan and acquire the targets to be able to shoot it.
It's absolutely beautiful. I love this match. This is perhaps one of my favorite matches of NUS. And I think it really complements the last one we saw of Tamu versus UW, right? Tamu, very obviously the clear second place last year, or 2022. Very, very good, very solid team, had a lot of really great strategies, but NUS is just so consistent. All their robots are functioning exactly how they want to. We're going to see the Sentry actually here. It's going to turn around. It's going to lock onto the hero on Tamu's side and start doing damage to it, right? Just consistent. It has CV. It rotates. It can find targets behind it and in front of it, and it scares away the Tamu hero, so they can't even start to do damage, right?
And that's all you need sometimes. It's just a small, or a big enough deterrent to be able to force a panic, to be able to force them to back off, to be able to just, you know, shove them off real quick.
Yeah, exactly. Steve in the chat. Yes, I too enjoy watching torture. See, it's not very torturous for me because this isn't my team watching it. But I'm sorry to the Tamu fans that are in chat going, this is such a sad time. We do appreciate you guys viewing regardless every time we bring in Tamu. And this is still like third best, right? Like absolutely a solid team. It's just this is just like showing like NUS came in out of nowhere and was able to dismantle a top team like Tamu like this. Like look how systematic it is, right? They're not rushing, they're not aggressive, they're not crazy fast with any plays. Their robots are not particularly like amazing. They're just solid in every aspect of it. And I love that. You know, I love that a team can just show up and be solid and is able to knock out one of the second best teams in the entire region at this time.
Well, yeah, and looking at the hero and looking at, you know, like you said, kind of being slower and more cautious and making sure that you're actually hitting your shots. Hero shots cost a lot to be able to afford. And also, the hoppers on them are usually not that big. So there's not too many opportunities you have to be able to be missing and follow up while you're still in an advantageous position. But as we see right now, you know, they're able to take that and get where they need to go, take their time, line up the shot, and get the job done.
I wish we had the stats for this. Oh, we kind of have them, but like faintly. We'll look at this corner right here. I don't know if you guys could see that in the corner, but we'll see here, like we're looking at the damage dealt between both sides. And it's like NUS just like consistently dealing more damage, got all the eliminations they needed, right? Like that's what really sold the deal for them. They were just really careful about where they put their eliminations to get those level advantages fast. Just playing the game well, right? And that's what I love about that team, man. And speaking of NUS, they actually make it to grand finals here. We're going to watch their match against UW in 2023 here before we move on to 2024. But yeah, this was the team that really this is what cemented in my mind, like the top four was NUS, TAMU, VT, and UW. These four teams have been top four since their debut in 2023 with NUS, and the other three obviously being top three every other year. And it's just a beautiful sight to see, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it just goes to show you, anybody's able to do it. I mean, not necessarily that it's anybody, right? It takes an incredible amount of talent and skill to be able to come in from a lot less experience than other teams and be able to just come in and get your job done, knock out the competition and move forward. But that just shows you, as long as you're able to get that technical prowess, you too can be among the greats.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we're going to see NUS versus UW, and this match is a lot, NUS is, I think this is where NUS's like slower pace strategy kind of bites them. UW is a very aggressive team at this point. They send their sentry directly to the center. Another moving sentry here. UW's hero, though, not really moving anymore. I think they're just kind of waiting and chilling, waiting for that opportunity to go take out the team. But they get first blood because they have that sentry support. They start taking out the NUS hero as well. This is where UW's CV is just like the technological prowess is even crazier on UW's side, right? They have amazing CV. Look at them. They're hitting through the wall onto NUS's sentry. I don't know if you guys saw that right there. Triple kill by the UW standard there is going to get a ton of levels there. It's already max level. And you're kind of playing crazy from the back foot, right? It's not really easy to play at this point from the back foot like this. You have to go back and do some blood bags. You got to try and recoup as UW leaves. But they've already done a ton of damage to your NUS sentry. And yeah, the team looks really solid, but it's just like UW is just that level beyond, right?
It's sentry on sentry combat. We hadn't ever seen this before. I believe this round, being able to have the sentry go all the way over. Because I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat though, UW. I'm pretty sure it was just about the finals, semifinals time, whenever the sentry was actually able to start moving around as well. Because I believe it was always able to shoot, but the movement was the thing that they were kind of iterating throughout the competition. And then they finally got it down to a pretty good science here to be able to get into a position to be able to shoot the other sentry with your own sentry. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And here we see, NUS is just not able to compete anymore. UW does actually overpower with their infantry still, which shows, even the best team in the entirety of NA is going to still occasionally run into those hiccups, right? Where it's like, I'm going to run over and, they have a module offline, actually. So even the best team's going to have some module faults occasionally. These are going to unplug, but it doesn't even matter. We're seeing the UW set hero just take out the rest of the base health like that. Didn't even end up mattering, right? And that's that's the shocking part, right? Just how much ahead UW is of everyone else in the field, right? Even in 2023, we're starting to see that crazy amount of dominance, right?
Absolutely. I mean, with its technological difference, its strategical difference, it's, consistency really as well. Like you said, sometimes it even happens to the best, like Murphy's Law, that's always going to be a truth. That's something that can go wrong, will go wrong at the worst possible moment. But they seem to at least abate that for as much as they could to not have that much of an issue in the competition to advance. Like, right, they might lose one of a best of three, but they're not going to lose two due to a robot fault or something like that, right? And so, or if they're down one, they're still able to kind of change their play style and adjust accordingly to still come out on top, because that standard and that hero could solo. And that was one thing that was, kind of somewhat unique to UW, I believe, was that both their hero and their standard could both go and take out other infantry robots. If in a pinch the hero needed to, it could.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. That's all my 2023 matches. We have a couple more, though, from last year that I want to show off. Specifically, I want to show off some of our newcomers that have started to do really well, particularly these two teams. We saw CU already and how great they can do when they have the opportunity to. We saw UW, we've seen TAMU, we've seen NUS, we've seen VT, but we haven't seen these two folks right here. Purdue Boilerbot and SFU. SFU was a new team last year, Matt. I don't know if you remember very much about last year, but SFU was a completely new team. First time doing 3v3. And look already out the gate, moving their robots around, accidentally bumping their sentry, but they're new. It's fine. You're going to accept a couple of new things here and there. But Purdue here, having that legged balancing robot, able to move around as well. These are both what we would consider midfield teams any year before, performing already solid, right? They're already performing at like a level of 2022, if not 2023, right? With the top teams. But here we have Purdue's balancing standard regular standard coming up, trying to do some damage. SFU's doing the damage back here, playing a little bit slow. Not really sure where either one is.
Well, I believe both teams here have a difference in strategy of fielding 2 standards versus a standard and a hero, right?
Yes. Both teams are double standards, which is another reason why this match is so fun, in my opinion. But yeah. So Purdue realizes, you know what, I'm going to take the central buff point first. They're not really going for it. They're kind of staying behind their field. Oh, and we're getting a little bit of lag on the VTMs there. But yeah, Purdue's able to sit on the central buff point, start taking in that currency there, and build up that advantage for the health bags.
When we talk about evolution as well, but I'd also say look at the evolution of the field. There's a bit more markings on the field this time with the gaff tape kind of denoting different lanes, different areas that weren't there before.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, the leveling is completely different now. We're seeing that level 10 strategy, right? Like Purdue is level 3 and SFU is level 2 on their standards. Usually that is a loss situation for SFU. You've already lost a whole level. Here, it's not that big of a difference. We're seeing that they're kind of still similar in abilities and power. It's not crazy enough to be like a completely snowball lead. And also, I'm going to correct myself real quick. The central buff point does not give health bags anymore. You can now just heal by standing in your buff point. You actually get XP from standing in the central buff point here. Completely different in terms of like leveling system as well. But Purdue is able to take in first blood against the standard floor for SFU. Without blood bags, that's not a complete loss. You can still come back from this, even if you're a little bit behind now.
Well, yeah, and just talking about difference of technology, I believe with the balancing standard, Torino was the first, if not accompanied by Purdue as the first, but then Purdue also came out and was one of the very early teams to try and start implementing those 2-wheel standards as opposed to 4. Yep.
Purdue has that nice balancing leg standard, and they take a huge advantage now in levels after taking a couple more knockouts there and doing some more sentry damage to SFU. But SFU still kind of in this fight a little bit. Yeah, we're seeing Purdue's balancing is really helping them here. That's the technological advantage they really need. You can't attack it in this year because it has only 2 armor plates. You don't even see a hitbox there. You cannot attack either of his armor plates. You have to go around the entire side and then try to do some damage to it. Very annoying to fight against, I'm sure, if you were on SFU's side. But they're not doing poorly. They're still able to kind of stay in a little bit, not getting completely rolled out the gate like you would expect of a team of like a lot of years of experience versus a team that has very low comparably.
Do the VTMs, whenever you're a driver, also sometimes lag, or is it a lot more consistent than the cameras? Because I know we're getting the camera feed from, it's being split off from where it's headed to the screen for the drivers. And so, I don't know if that's necessarily something that the drivers also have to deal with, or if that's something that is just more on the stream side.
I think it's more on the stream side, but anyone who drove, I didn't drive this year. This was the year that I was just commentating. I'd already graduated. I was off my own time. I was doing my own stuff. So I don't know how it felt to drive, but I'll ask this chat. For any of you who were driving this year, was the VTMs an issue? Please let us know. We'd like to know. And that way also I can complain to operators and be like, make sure it's good this year.
But yeah, just looking at the technology difference, like you said, with the armor panels, not like having an entire face of your robot that's not able to be shot is a humongous advantage if you're able to pull it off and not suffer mobility issues like some teams that try to implement the 2-wheel standard but are not able to do so super effectively, almost like Purdue in their first year in implementing it, where it worked for the most part, but on the times it didn't, it was just like, your robot's full of mobile.
Absolutely. We're going to actually also... Yeah, so here we're going to see Purdue's going to keep doing that damage from across the base. And that's another thing also with this dual standard strategy, which you can no longer do, by the way, this year. You have to field a hero and a standard. You're not allowed to field just 2 standards anymore. Dual standard strategy, once you beat the sentry, you're going to do a lot less damage to the base. And we can see this here, right? You've only knocked it down to about half its health now, but you're taking a long time to do it, right? SFU getting to that final last level there, and they're also going to be able to now try to get into the game if they can. But SFU doing incredibly well for a starting team, right? This is the first year out the gate. they're not making it easy for Purdue by any means. They're still in the match, still fighting back, doing what they can. It's not necessarily you can't win anymore with 4 seconds on the clock, but it's kind of interesting to see how like new teams have even changed, right? New teams are no longer struggling to move around, no longer struggling to like just make it across the field. New teams are actively posing some threats here for some of these older teams.
And fielding 3 robots, right? I mean, sometimes we've seen just like 1 or 2 robots fielded, but like fielding all 3 is very impressive for a new team.
Absolutely.
And it's something to be proud of, even if, you don't get all the way through. But I mean, as they did get pretty far in the competition, I mean, that's also something to be even more proud of as a first-year team, at least first year to the region. But, it's always great seeing new talent coming up. It's always great seeing new teams, new competitors to kind of bring in the spice of both the technology and the strategy.
Absolutely. And speaking of Purdue, we're going to show one more match from them versus VT, who VT will come back up again really, really soon in 2024. But VT was looking very powerful this year, right? They had really mastered the game strategy here. And Purdue was also not bad by any means. We're going to watch round 2 of this match. We just saw Purdue was actually at a lot better position. They were a top 8 team for sure. And this was their first chance to show that they could be a top 4 team. So here we see both the Blue Standard 4 is going to be coming out and Blue Standard 3 is going to be following not too far behind. Purdue's Sentry actually goes to the reload zone to be able to keep him healing. So little thing about this year, rules-wise, if your Sentry is in the reload zone, it can gain health back up to a total of 600 health. So if you hit it a little bit in the reload zone, it'll gain a little bit. So it effectively has 1,200 health now just sitting in that zone, right?
I believe that was able to happen in 2023 as well. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, it was able to happen in 2023, but no one ever did it in 2023. So it's nice to see that Purdue has made that adaptation. Even if they're not actively localizing, moving around, they're like, oh, we need to put those Sentry in this position, right? To give ourselves the best chance of winning, right? Get it out of the main field. We don't want it to really be engaging very much. Blue Standard 3 is going to go down first to Red Standard 3 on the VT side, which again, crazy on their side as well. VT is insane with the ability that they have. They're already 3-4 levels ahead, which is now about what we would expect the level difference to be from level 1, level 2 in previous years. That's about what the level difference is here.
Yeah, well, and talking about being able to see, right here where we can see the number, the letters that was able to be used on different kinds of parts of the field in both the left side of the screen and the middle. Mm-hmm. That's what you would use. That's what some teams would opt to use for being able to locate where they are on the field. Other teams, I think, would also just go and use odometry pods, like you were saying earlier, to be able to tell, their translation difference from where they started, since they know where they started.
Yeah, absolutely. VT's hero actually gets knocked out over there by the Purdue side. And Purdue is going to start, Purdue loses the central buff point, and loses their standard 3, but they're still not too far behind. They have a max level infantry on the infantry 3, and they have a near max level infantry on infantry 4 as well. So with the dual standard strategy and having more damage on the Sentry, the thing that they don't want to lose the base. Under no circumstances can they lose any base health, because it'll be such a pain to gain up that health back. So they're seeing that VT is doing some damage to their shield. They're immediately rushing them to be like, get out of there, get away. We don't want you over there.
Yeah, because if you knock that overshield off and even get a single standard shot of damage, or even just a incidental damage for the 1 damage as opposed to the 5 that a normal 17mm projectile would do, then you're still, that's enough. That's all it takes.
That's all it takes. And we saw that the Blue Standard 4 chasing the red hero with the Blue Standard 3, they were like, we cannot have you come to our base. But Virginia Tech's Sentry actually knocks out Blue Standard 3. Really, really funny, in my opinion, to watch that happen. I think that it's really cool that we're seeing Sentries also actively getting engaged in the confrontation. This was not something we saw a ton in 2023 with the new Sentries, but now all the ones in 2024, essentially, that we're seeing at these top levels are able to fight back. If not move, at least fight back, right?
Yeah. And it's important to be able to fight back, because even if it's just shooting in the general direction, as a driver, you're still going to panic and see those projectiles coming at you, and they can still ricochet off the floor and do full damage. But it's just, that's at least some kind of a deterrent to not just give you a free shot at being able to do damage to a win condition.
Yep. The VT actually realizes their hero is kind of a little bit in the ropes right now. They have a module fall of some kind that's causing them to overpower. And so it kind of shows, even the top teams like VT, which we know will go on to become second place this game. They're also going to have struggles sometimes with the ability to maneuver their bots. And so you have to capitalize on it. And Purdue does wonderfully. They knock out the Sentry. They start doing some damage to the base. They know they have to keep as much of a lead as possible, because if that hero ever comes back online, it's going to be over for them.
Well, yeah, not to mention if their 17 millimeters aren't being shot, they're not spending money on those 17 millimeter projectiles and can just funnel that all to the hero to be able to just chunk that base and get
Yep,
through
yep,
just enough to do some damage to it.
yep, absolutely. And that's
I mean,
going to be
now they're going to need
VT's
to do a
part.
little more than just 5 because, 1400 health on VT's base, but
Yeah. And so we're going to see, here's that confrontation here. They're trying to keep the hero from going close. They're watching it very carefully. This is the blue standard 4 is like, I need to keep the hero knocked out as much as possible, while blue standard 3 continues to try and do as much damage as it can to the other sentry, or to the other standard, sorry. And yeah, this is just wonderful game sense from Purdue.
And base health is dropping just a little bit on VT from the volley that Purdue was able to put on before they went back to get more projectiles. But that's still more than 0.
It is still more than 0. The central buff point is now kind of like, the reason why everyone ignores it now at this point is it's not really necessary anymore. You don't gain anything out of it except for levels. Maybe VT will want it for their hero to level up one more time, but it's really out of the gate at this point. It's only a level 3 versus a bunch of level 10 infantry. It's going to be hard to get it back into this fight at this point with only 15 seconds left on the clock. And the sentry's starting to take a lot of damage, though. Immediately VT rushes. They know they can do this. They just need to get one shot off onto the base. 5 seconds left on the clock. If they get one shot off, Purdue tries to body block as much as possible. They're smacking each other. They're getting yellow cards everywhere. Purdue barely survives that game. But Purdue does take a game off of VT. Top
I think
14.
Historically, also, VT has been one of the teams that has been involved in almost every base race. I think they've always had some down to the wire hits. I think they even had one where both heroes were at each other's bases, just shooting the point blank, just trying to get it down to 0 and just barely beating out. I believe they beat out A&M in one of those races. But they've been base racing since they started at the competition. It's something that they're very familiar with and can cook under the pressure.
Yep. And they're very happy to do it as well. So the fact that Purdue was able to defend here, it's kind of showcasing here, and that the main thread that I want to pull here is the top 8 teams are getting a lot closer. We saw before UW just kind of thrashed people. VT Tamu thrashed everyone they were up against. No one really seemed like they could bring the heat to either of those 4 teams. But here we're seeing Purdue not really considered to be a top 4 team. They're not necessarily at that level yet in people's eyes. Not only taking a game, but taking it so brilliantly, masterfully. All the robots were working. Everything was working for them. Reliability was up there, including with the balancing standard. And they were able to strategically keep VT away from getting the base with their hero. That was all they needed to do, and they executed perfectly on it. Now, they
recognize the threat. They recognize the threat. They were able to deal with it. Because if some teams might not be able to transition their strategy from, this is what we're going to do because we've done it against other teams, but they see that and they're able to adjust to it while that match is going on.
Absolutely. We're going to watch one more match here, Matt. This is the finals of last year, UW versus VT. And just to kind of cap off what the narrative is going to be like going into 2025. And then we'll have a little bit of a section where we just talk about that. But here we're going to see the pinnacle of RoboMasters in 2024, the 2 best teams up against each other. Look at the way they move. Immediately out the gate, UW is already at their base. They're claiming their projectiles. They're moving straight towards that sentry. No hesitation at all. Sentries are fighting the standards. Both sides are fighting each other. They're all just there. UW is actually not moving their sentry in this match. They didn't totally have it down yet. But yeah, exchanging blows back and forth. VT sentry is a little bit lower than the UW's, and then UW's goes a little bit lower than VT's, and it's just it's so close out the gate.
Well, and it is, and there's also both teams being able to fire back on the sentry, if not 100% accurately, at least in the direction, kind of like we were talking about. Just enough of a deterrent to make you have to actually approach it cautiously, as opposed to just being able to walk up and get some free shots.
We see there VT overextends a tiny bit with their hero, and UW standard is able to capitalize, propelling it super high up in terms of levels. Now UW's infantry is at a level 9 versus a level 4 infantry on the VT side, which is really unfortunate for VT because now you're playing from the back foot, right? That standard is going to be incredibly scary. It's going to try and get some more kills. And you can see their hero is really, really cautiously looking around, trying to be like, I don't want to get involved next to that. UW's hero is now going to the base, immediately trying to do damage to it and get through that overshield. They're playing the VT strategy of aggression here against VT, getting in the back. VT notices they're trying to get back into the base. They're trying to do some damage back. That bump there stopping the standard from doing enough to get in immediately. They're starting to do some damage, but UW does heal back with their level up there after taking another one of the central buff point from the standard. Runs out of projectiles, though. Not able to completely close it off yet.
Are they full out? I think they still have 5 technically. I think they might have just been trying
Oh,
to get as much reps in for the drivers to be able to practice as possible.
makes sense. Makes sense. The Sentry on the UW side taking out VT's hero yet again, unable to maneuver. UW is waiting for 5 more seconds to get more econ so they can buy more projectiles software-wise on the hero. See that like nice little 0 there? They get 10 on the hero and they're rushing him immediately. And the VT knows they meet them right there. They're ready to meet them, but it's just not enough. And that, my friends, that chat is what 2024 ended up looking like. UW was able to take it in crazy style, able to win that one. Incredibly fast paced. It was a 6-minute match total. Incredibly fast match. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. Closing thoughts, Matt, before we go.
I mean, just as we've been looking into the past, it's also time to start kind of looking into the future as we approach the date of this competition. Just about a little bit over a month out, and couldn't be more excited to be able to be back on with you guys and being able to also see the competition this time, since I'll be able to take the time off and be able to be there. And so looking forward to see if UW's able to carry their crown all the way through, or if somebody might come up as a Kingslayer and be able to overtake them.
Absolutely. I think also, like, just to kind of add on to that as well, in 2025, I'm really interested to see what the state of the midfield is, right? We've seen every year the midfield is getting more and more competitive, even with new teams being able to compete directly against teams like Purdue. And I'm just so excited to see where these teams are going to go next. You know, like Purdue, for example, Balancing Standard no longer has that plus of having only 2 armor panels. You now have to have all 4. Curious to see how that development's going to change. The field is obviously very different. There's a lot more bumps. There's a lot more maneuverability required. So we're going to see how that ends up going as well. But yeah, I think that the biggest takeaway for me is that RoboMaster is not just a robotics competition. It's not just an esport. It's a bit of both. And it's a ton of fun, no matter what side you're on, whether you're driving, whether you're commentating, whether you're just watching from home. I hope that you've had a beautiful night with us and able to kind of relive some of those glory days for those of you who were featured in good lights, and perhaps maybe relive some of those horrible days as well so you don't make those mistakes again. But yeah, we appreciate you guys joining us today, and we will catch you guys next time. Bye, everyone.
See ya.